Hi YouTube! Today I want to compare the Medela Pump and Style Advanced Starter Kit, model number 57081. This is the version of the Medela Pump and Style that's available through most insurance companies, with the Ameda Purely Yours. These are two of the options for breast pumps that a lot of insurance companies offer, so I just wanted to go through and compare their features. The Medela is what I got with this baby as my free pump through my insurance, and the Ameda is what I bought 3 years ago when my daughter was born. Alright, first let's focus on the pumps themselves. So as you can see, the Ameda is a little bit longer than the Medela. They're both about the same depth. The Medela is a little bit taller, so they're roughly the same size. In terms of weight, your Ameda is significantly lighter than the Medela. So that's a trade-off. But if you look at the weight of the chargers, the Ameda charger is bulkier than the Medela charger, and the Ameda charger also weighs a little bit more. I haven't actually weighed these. This is just kind of by feel, but they're both, portable, but your Medela is going to be a little bit heavier. Next, let's talk in terms of power supply. So they both come with a AC/DC adapter. That is the primary way to power them. So here's where you plug it into the Medela. On the Ameda, you plug it in over right here. Then they both have the option of being powered off of batteries. If you want to power your Medela off of batteries, there's a little battery pack that you can get that plugs in right here too, but it's a separate piece. If you want to power your Ameda off of batteries, there's a battery compartment right on the bottom, and you can just keep batteries in there all the time, and it will default to using the power supply if you have that connected, but then if you disconnect the power supply, it can switch over to the batteries without having any interruption pumping. So when I was pumping for my daughter, that was a really great feature. So if I was pumping and I was using the power adapter and I had to get up and answer the phone or grab something in the kitchen, I could just unplug the pump and bring it with me and would just switch straight over to the batteries, and when I was done, I could go back and plug it in. You don't have that same versatility with the Medela because in order to switch from batteries from the adapter to the batteries, you have to physically unplug the adapter and plug in the batteries. Both companies provide car chargers that can be purchased separately if you want to use your vehicle power adapter, power plug to power your pump. That's another option as well. Next, looking in terms of settings, both of these have two controls. There is a suction switch on both of them that you just rotate, that turns it, essentially acts as both your on-off switch and controls the amount of suction. And that's the same on both pumps. And then they both have a way to control the cycles. The way the Medela does this is it will automatically, when you turn it on, go to a faster cycling speed that's designed to stimulate a letdown. And then after 2 minutes, it will automatically switch to a slower speed that's better for milk expression. And if you want to switch it from the letdown mode to the expression mode, you just press early. You can just press this button. And if you stop getting milk flow and you want to go back to the expression mode, again, you just press this button. Whereas on the Ameda Purely Yours, this cycle, there's actually a dial here for cycles. So you can decide whether you want it really slow or really fast or somewhere in between and switch it back and forth totally manually. So this theoretically gives you more control over cycling speed. However, I never really used it. Either if I was doing stimulation, I would have it all the way up to try and get a letdown, and then if I was expressing, I would turn it all the way down. So even though it had a continuous range, I never really found that terribly useful. In terms of noise, neither of them are terribly loud or terribly quiet. I'll turn them both on for you so you can hear what they sound like. But there's really not much difference in terms of loudness that I can detect. So this is the Medela on the highest suction. And you can hear it's going really fast to try and stimulate a letdown. And if I press the letdown button, you can hear it's quiet. Now you can also hear a little puff of air coming out of this. If I had the tubing connected to the bottles, you wouldn't hear that puff. But that sound of the motor would be the same. As you lower the suction, the sound does go down a little bit. Now let's try our Ameda. So again, this is the fastest section, fastest cycle, highest section. That's the sound you get. And there's this little beep that the Ameda has that the Medela doesn't. And then if we reduce the cycles, again, you can hear the sound, you can hear the little beep, and the cycling is much slower. So one thing I'm not sure if you noticed, I don't have numbers for this, but the Medela cycles, both for the stimulation and for the expression, appear to be faster than the range that you get on the Ameda. That could be a pro or a con. You really have to try it out and see what works for you pumping-wise. Last thing I want to show you with regard to the pumps is how you go from single pumping to double pumping. So on the Medela, there's a piece that always stays attached to the pump right here, and you just leave it like that if you want a double pump and attach one piece of tubing to each side. And if you want a single pump, you can just cover up one of the ports, but that piece stays attached. On the Ameda, there's this little tiny plastic piece, which you got to be careful not to lose. That plugs into the side of the pump over there. And if you want to cover up one of the pumping ports like that, that way you can attach one piece of tubing instead of two. Now it would seem like this little piece is easy to lose, but truthfully you're going to keep it attached to your tubing most of the time, and that'll help keep it from getting lost. I'm going to take apart the bottle and flange setup so that you can see all the different bits and pieces for that. Alright, so here are the pieces for the Medela. Fully disassembled for each breast, you're going to have a total of 6 pieces. You have a collection bottle, you have a valve, you have a little white membrane that attaches to the valve, you have your tubing, and then the flange itself disconnects into 2 pieces. Having it as 2 separate pieces can make it a little bit easier for cleaning. It also allows you, if you need to change flange sizes, instead of having to replace the whole piece, just this piece is replaced. Here's your pieces for your Ameda. Again, you have your tubing. This piece is the cap that attaches the tubing to the flange. It does technically come off. I believe it ships separately from the tubing, but once you've used it for a while, you're never going to actually disconnect it from the tubing, and I don't think I could get mine off if I tried at this point. Then you have the flange itself. This is one piece in the Ameda. You have this little white diaphragm that fits inside the flange on top where the tubing connects. This diaphragm makes it absolutely impossible for milk to back up into the tubing of your Ameda. So that's one big plus of the Ameda versus the Medela, is the Medela, if you're in a weird position, you could theoretically get milk in the tubing, and people do complain about that. That cannot happen with the Ameda. This is your valve for the Ameda, so it's only one piece. You don't have this tiny little membrane to worry about that you have with the Medela. And here's your collection bottle for the Ameda. Alright, and then there's just a couple final features I want to point out to you. One is the way the Ameda is set up. There are these 2 little compartments on top that are designed to hold the bottles before or after pumping. I really like that feature. It makes it easy to just kind of keep everything together if you're leaving it set up at your home or your work. Also, if you pump and there's really not that much in one of the bottles, this prevents the bottles from accidentally tipping over and spilling breast milk. So that's a nice feature that you have with the Ameda, but not with Medela. One other little comfort issue is that if you just go in the flange right here, this curve here is much, I guess, like more angular than the matching curve in the Medela. So that might make the Medela more comfortable for some people. I actually had to end up purchasing an attachment for my Ameda in order to make pumping comfortable for me. The attachment I purchased looks like this. It's their areola stimulator. And the real reason that I decided to get it was just because I was getting irritation from this angle right here. So Medela does not make an accessory like this for the Medela pump. So I'm hoping that this, because it's a gentler curve, won't be irritating to me. The last thing you want to consider when looking at these pumps is the availability of certain accessories and spare parts, as well as cleaning. So first, in terms of cleaning, I showed you all the bits and pieces that you need to disconnect. One big difference is you may have to occasionally clean your tubing for your Medela, but not for your Ameda, because the milk could potentially back up into the tube in the Medela, but that can't happen in the Ameda because of that diaphragm. Also, this is just an instruction thing, but Medela does recommend that you sterilize all your parts once a day. Ameda does not have that recommendation. No, I don't know why it's any different. Theoretically, it's really should be the same, But if you're so a stickler for following rules, Medela says you have to sterilize every day. Ameda says cleaning with soap and water is fine. Finally, the Medela instructions do include instructions for taking off the face paint and cleaning behind, just because there is that risk of milk getting into the tubing and then potentially behind the face plate. That's something that you have to be aware of. And then finally, you may want to look at your availability of certain accessories or spare parts. Both of these companies make bags for the pumps, but the Medela's bag is a lot nicer. The Medela's cooler bag is a lot nicer. Some people like the prettier accessories that come with the Medela. Then you are going to need spare parts from time to time. Those little tiny membranes in the Medela are just begging to get lost. And those valves in the Ameda do need to get replaced from time to time. So you want to make sure that whichever pump you choose, you have spare parts available for purchase readily and conveniently. So in my area, the Babies R Us carries both spare parts for Ameda and Medela, but they devote a lot more shelf space to Medela spare parts. So it might be more, if you're concerned about the availability of spare parts, go to your local Babies R Us or Bye Bye Baby and make sure that whichever pump you're choosing, you can get those spare parts when you need them, because you don't want to have to wait for mail order. So I haven't used my Medela yet. I used the Ameda and was very happy with it. So I'm going to try out the Medela with this baby. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment space below, and I will try and get back to you. And I'll also try and do an update in terms of performance once I've used both pumps equally. But they both are good pumps from really good companies. Either way, you're probably making a good choice, but that just lets you know some of the features that differ between the two pumps. Have a great day. Bye.